The Aesthetics of Leadership podcast, the look of leadership that is unmistakable. Welcome back to another episode of the Aesthetics of Leadership podcast, the show where we uncover the transformational stories behind men who rise, rebuild, and redefine what leadership truly means. Today's guest is someone who embodies that mission with grit, grace, and a whole lot of strain. Kyle Bernier is a former multi-sport athlete turned competitive CrossFitter, father, coach, and founder of Strain Forward Fitness. He's also the voice behind the Strain Forward podcast, a raw, real, and honest exploration of what it means to keep moving through the good, the bad, and the ugly of life. Kyle is a man who's lived the grind, from overcoming injuries to reinventing himself as a purpose-driven coach, helping busy parents reclaim their health. He's built his life around discipline, authenticity, and transformation. And today, we're diving into his journey, the lessons learned in pain, the breakthroughs forged in perseverance, and the mindset that continues to push him and his clients forward. Whether you're an athlete, a leader, or a man on the edge of a personal comeback, this conversation will challenge you, inspire you, and remind you that sometimes the only way through is to strain forward. Let's get into it with Kyle Bernier. Kyle, what a pleasure. Happy Tuesday, man.
How you doing, man?
No complaints. It is a beautiful day in Louisiana. I believe you. Are you on the East Coast?
Yes, East Coast. I'm in Georgia.
Okay, brilliant. And of course, being in the South, it's got to be Bernier, right?
Well, so technically it is. It's a French last name, but it is pronounced Bernier. It's
Bernier.
it it
Okay.
it, it the correct way is Bernier, but very few people say that. Only people who are like, "Oh, I actually understand that."
Well, being in Louisiana, Bernier is what came to mind absolutely immediately.
Yeah.
I'm sure you appreciate why.
Yeah,
Kyle,
because you get in Louisiana, it's like the French Cajun type deal, right?
oh, absolutely. It
Yeah.
is totally Creole, French, yeah,
Yeah,
Spanish.
yeah.
You got it. So,
That's
yeah, if
hilarious.
you come over and visit, you're going to be Bernier for sure, just to be part of the family.
I love that.
Kyle, I appreciate you saying yes. I know you're a fellow podcaster. You appreciate the fact that you ask 100 times, and if you get a quarter of that, you're lucky to get a guest on. So, man, thank you for saying yes to a
Sure.
conversation about your story, your lessons in leadership, because this show, I think, complements yours. This show is about the nature and appreciation of transformations, especially in
Mhm.
leadership, and those transformations can happen in body, in mind, and in spirit. And I don't know your origin story, but I'm really curious about it because I would argue that all three of those transformations are present at some point in your timeline.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So, Kyle, I also recognize that I came across your profile, I think, through a mutual follower, Brian Pruitt. I went to one of his men's summits down in Sarasota, and I think we were talking about gritty athletes who would be good to interview on this podcast, and your name came up. And
Oh
so I've
wow.
been following you, and you haven't been on social media that long,
No,
honestly, right? I think it's
yeah,
what.
I started really like really posting last February. So it's been a year where I've like really devoted myself to social media now.
Yeah, so I guess that begs the question, Strain Forward is a really unique name for your brand and the podcast. And I'm curious, what does that phrase represent for you personally? Why
Mm.
did you choose it? And I'd love to know how that aligns with your philosophy of life.
Yeah, yeah, no, I'm glad you asked that, man. Because it is a little confusing. People are like, strange, like what it was, it kind of sounds cool. At least I hope it sounds cool, but it is unique.
It does.
Um, so it comes from Philippians 3:13, 14. And it kind of, dude, it was weird. It kind of just like I describe it as like God almost like downloaded this idea into my brain. Like it just came to me and I was like, yes, I'm gonna do that. And now the verse Philippians 3:13, 14 says it's Paul, he's writing to the church of Philippi, and he says, you know, I do not consider myself to have taken hold of it. But one thing I do, I forget what lies behind me, and I strain forward toward the goal, my heavenly calling in Christ Jesus. And so it's this idea that Paul is forgetting his past, he's forgetting what lies behind him, and he's straining forward toward the goal. And it really spoke to me because, like, at that specific time, and still to a degree, I was just being hit with a lot of like self-realization of some mistakes that I had made in life. Like everything was kind of coming to a head. It was right when my ex and I were splitting up. She actually called the engagement off. We were engaged and she called it off due to some things that like were really my fault. And it was just very poignant for me of like the only way forward is for me to be able to forget this stuff. Not forget it of like be amicable toward it, but like I'm gonna have to really let go and push forward towards some goals in my life and toward being a different person. And so that idea of, you know, everyone I talk to talks about like I've just been so stuck or I've been struggling with consistency. It's like okay, that's who you were. It's not who you're going to be. We got to strain forward toward a different version of yourself. And so that's kind of the idea behind it. And then the keep moving forward thing I put at the end of my videos is that same thing of like you just got to keep moving forward. It's cliche and it's corny, but it's true. It's like times are tough and you don't want to get your full workout in and you don't want to do the podcast at whatever time and do the editing and do all the stuff, but it's like you just got to do it to keep moving forward. And if you do that, you can't lose. So that's the idea behind it.
Yeah, man, that resonates so much. I think what I see and feel in the world, particularly in the realm of men, is maybe this is the wrong word, Kyle, but an aversion to the pain or the strain
Mm,
that there's hesitation, there may be maybe there's everybody's looking for the hack, right? The
yeah, yeah.
shortcut. And sometimes it's just the trudge, right? It's the consistent strain forward. And I'm curious. I study human behavior and personality, and granted, over what 60% of the population are the steady, stable people who do not like a disruption of their comfort zone.
Yeah.
Yet there are warriors like you out there in the world who are saying, no, 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 that is not the way.
Mm.
This is the way. So from just a masculine perspective, what should we be doing to circumvent the pain and suffering in men today and is strain forward the way forward?
When you say circumvent the pain, what do you mean?
Yeah, I think a lot of men are questioning their role in society. I think there is doubt of the way forward. I think there is
Mm,
hesitation that we have to have the right answer. I think there's risk aversion because there's so much gravity associated with the decision that I'd just rather not make a decision, which is a
yeah.
decision. And
Yeah, right.
and maybe it's doing the hard things aren't the call for men anymore when I feel like doing the hard things was the call at one point, or am I just overgeneralizing it?
No, I think you're absolutely right. You know, I don't know what the answer to that is, but I know for me, I, w- I was always just the type that like for better or for worse, when I was, especially playing sports, I would actually listen to like what the coaches said and I took it as gospel, where they were like, or even like the corny like motivation stuff on social media where it's like, you got to take the risks and if you want to achieve, you got to actually try and you got to be willing. Like I actually listened to that and took it as gospel. You know what I mean? Like so many people hear that and they don't do anything, but I heard it and was like, okay, like I want to do that. Like I want to actually be successful. And so, for those out there who are hesitant, especially men who are hesitant and they're not taking, I think it comes from, and this comes from phone calls with men, like a place of fear, fear of failure, and fear of success. Those two both pop up, and I think you got to kind of ask yourself the question, like what's the alternative to not trying, right? That was something that really resonated with me, especially when I was competing. It was like I'd be tired and I wouldn't want to train. And I was like, well, what's the alternative? Like, go get some job that I don't really want to sit in and think to myself, what if I would have continued? Like, I don't really want to experience that. And so I think a lot of men got to ask themselves that question, like, what's the actual alternative to not doing that? And it's going to be, well, I'm going to stay here in this comfortable position. I'm going to stay here and not reach any of the goals I want. I'm going to stay here and keep being complacent and dissatisfied. Whereas that, it might be unknown and it might be scary, but there's a lot of opportunity in that. And you just got to be willing to do it. But I think too, a lot of people don't get there until they're in enough pain to change. Right. And that was, I was always not risk averse in like shooting for my goals and CrossFit and all that stuff. Like I just went for it. But I didn't really dial in the rest of like being a man. And I'm still dialing it in. So let me be clear. I'm not dialed in by any means, but I'm still trying. I'm trying. But I didn't really try until I was in enough pain where the pain of changing was not as great as the pain of staying where I was. And that might be the case for a lot of people out there. Like they're just not in enough pain yet. They don't see their life as something that needs to be changed. They're comfortable. They're not like they're just not in enough discomfort where they're sitting to go through more discomfort of changing. And I don't know if that answers your question, but it seems
It
to,
does, Kyle. It does, but it brings up the other question. You have a lot of people like you and me who know what the other side can be for men. When they're optimized, when they're whole, when they're fulfilled, body, mind, and and spirit, what the possibilities are
yeah,
with happiness and success. So it's a big sales job at that time, right? You've got somebody stuck in their comfort zone, and you have Jedi masters trying to come help the Padawan grow, but the Padawan want to stay the same. So
yeah,
I feel like it is it is a rescue job that I'm called to, but if people aren't ready to change, I can't change them.
yeah.
Y-
That, I mean,
y-
I say that to people all the time when I have a conversation. It's like, I can't want this more than you. I can't like, and I tell them this to them very clear. I'm like, hey, I could be the best coach in the world. I could have the best nutrition plan, the best program. I could text you 100 times a day. We could hop on a phone call every single day. It will not matter unless you actually want it. Like you have to do the work. And it's just the truth.
Yeah, do the work. Do the work. I think Nike's motto has had it for a long time. Just do it.
Yeah,
You said something interesting, Kyle, that I have heard recently, that usually it is the fear of failure that comes to mind that holds men back, but the fear of success
hmm
um, has come up recently as well. And I'm curious what your perspectives on that are and the mechanism by which that just didn't make sense. I'm not scared of success. I want that.
Yeah.
Yet you might be scared of it. What's your perspective on that?
Yeah, I think pain is so familiar for a lot of people that if they get to a place where they're successful and they're no longer in pain, they lose their motivation, right? Like the artist NF. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he's a rapper. He's not really he's kind of Christian but not Christian, but one of the things I heard him say was like in the beginning his music was motivated by so much pain from his past. It was an outlet for him. And then he started to hit it big. He started to sell out shows and he started to like life started to change and get better for him. And he found himself like struggling to create the same level of music because he wasn't in as much pain, right? So he had that success. And so I think for a lot of men, that unknown is like, well, how do I stay there if I'm not driven by the same thing I've been driven by? Right? Like, how do there's another book called The Great Leap. I think it's called The Great Leap or The Big Leap, one or the other, where he talks about that. He says, so many people, they don't know, they know how to get to the top. Like, they know how to actually do things to be successful, but we don't know how to stay there because staying there is unknown. And actually staying in a place where you're in its elevated place is like, what do I search for motivation and drive? And so it actually has to switch. And my belief is like your drive and your motivation has to switch. And that's where I think you fall in love with the process. You fall in
Mm.
love with the systems, with the effort, with the like that becomes your drive and no longer pain becomes your drive. So you can stay at the success and you can believe in yourself. That's what seems to come up with men when I have these conversations with them.
Yeah, so help me there. I love what you said, and I've heard that before, and I'd appreciate your translation of that. Most people are motivated, inspired, moved at least by the result, the
Mm,
outcome of the hard work. That's what people are looking at, and you suggest, as well as others, that you fall in love with the process.
yeah.
How do you transition that mindset
Mm.
from outcome to process so that eventually you do love the process? It's not an overnight thing, right?
No, it's definitely not. I think it's something you have to constantly remind yourself of. And this comes from my days of competing. I was very much driven by like I wanted to perform well. And then I went to my first big competition and I did not do well. I did not do well at all. And I was very embarrassed. I mean, I was like last athlete on the floor in one of the events and people are clapping for you, like, you got it, you can. And it was like, I promise, guys, I'm better than this. I don't know what just happened, but it just is, this is not good. It was very humbling and very embarrassing. And that, like, when you face something like that, you kind of have to like you have to learn how to cope with it. Like, how do I cope with this almost like identity like issue? Like, I didn't just go and be the athlete that I know I am, and I don't know what to do about that. And so you have to learn new ways to cope. And one of the ways I learned through reading books and podcasts and things was, okay, you can't control outcomes. You can't control performance. I cannot control because I don't know how good someone else is going to be. I don't know. I just don't know. The only thing I can really focus on is the effort and my attitude. And once you fall in love with the effort and the attitude of what you're doing day in and day out, you fall in love with the processes and the systems, the inputs, and then the outputs. You're just like, okay, like I can't control what's going to happen. All I can control is the input, and we'll see what happens. And so that way, if it's not what you wanted, it's like, okay, I didn't quite get there. Maybe I can analyze and shift and whatever, but I go right back to work. And as long as I show up every day and I do those things, like eventually something good will happen. I don't know if that
Mhm.
answers your question again.
Yeah, that's really good. What I hear you say, Kyle, is control the controllables. And I know we hear that, but I don't know if we understand and identify what those are in our life and actually grab them.
Yeah.
And then the second thing right behind that is reduce your scope. If
Mm,
you're only focusing on those controllables that you own and the next step that you take, which is also yours, your vision moves from up to down a little bit. And
mm.
I've heard some thought leaders say, "Oh, your eye always needs to be on the prize." Well, yeah, I get that, but from an action standpoint, you need to drop your gaze
Yeah.
to the next step, not every step to
Yeah.
get there.
Yeah, I remember I would experience this sounds silly, and I bring it back to fitness just because fitness been, my life thus far. But I bring it back to fitness where I I would be surprised when I would like hit a PR and like because I would do the work to get there. I would focus on the training, the day in, the day out, and then all of a sudden I'd hit the PR and I'd be like, "Holy smokes, this actually worked!" Like this stuff actually works. This is crazy, and I think it almost has to be the same thing, almost like shooting a gun, where it's like you're not focusing on pulling the trigger, you're focusing on being dialed in, and pulling the trigger should actually surprise you, right? And so it's the same concept of like just focus on the controllables day in, day out, day in, day out. And next thing you know, you'll be there or dang near close. And then you can reevaluate, reassess, and then keep moving forward. Not to be cliche, but you just do it
Yeah.
again.
Then you get to those other things that are part of the journey.
Yeah.
But take care of the foundation first. So you've mentioned so far, Kyle, you've been a multi-sport athlete, right? Before focusing on CrossFit, you were you were an athlete of a different tribe, so to speak. How did
Yeah.
those early athletic experiences, how did they shape your mindset when you transitioned to CrossFit? Because I would argue, having been a former CrossFitter, I got a shoulder repair out of it. There's a total mindset shift, in my opinion, from other sports to that sport. Was
Yeah.
that your experience, and how has that shaped you today?
It was and it wasn't. I was always the athlete that really enjoyed the extra sprints and the fitness part of it. Like if we
You're a
if we got
masochist, right? Okay,
yeah,
I
so
get it.
like if we got in trouble and the coach was like, "We're running extra sprints," I was like, "Good, good." I remember I got punished in college one time, and the punishment was I had to get to the gym at like 5 a.m. and do like an hour of these weird exercises, and I loved it. I was like, "Yes, this is fantastic." So I was always that kind of athlete. So switching over into CrossFit, it kind of felt like it was like this is where I belong.
Yeah,
Like
I
I
can
can
see
I can
that
actually
now.
I
That
can
makes
potentially
sense.
get paid to do burpees. Like this is amazing. Let's do that. So it was a good fit for me, and it wasn't. I mean, truthfully, this sounds. I don't mean for this to sound douchey or braggadocious, but I was always so good at like football and track that I never really had to face any like real adversity other than if we like lost the game, right? And then you learn how to cope with losing and then growing and all that. But I was always just very athletic that like there wasn't a lot of adversity I had to face mentally. It wasn't until I got into CrossFit and started really pursuing that and then going to these major competitions or not qualifying for events that I was gunning for that I was like, holy smokes, like this is a real identity. This is challenging my identity now. I'm going to have to learn how to like face this and cope with it. It wasn't until that happened that I really started to have to develop my mindset more.
Okay, so you've mentioned the word identity multiple times now. I definitely want to go there. So this might be a multi-part question. So let me see if I can get this right. Um, Clearly, in the examples that you've given us so far, not qualifying, not competing well, those kind of setbacks clearly impacted you, right? What I'm curious what you learned from those experiences about maybe resilience, recovery, and mental toughness
Yeah.
that have shaped your identity today.
Yeah. Yeah. It definitely taught me how to be okay. This I don't want to say this in a weird way, but how to embrace failure, right? Not look at failure as, oh, I'm a failure. It's to just like, okay, I failed at this thing, but it doesn't mean I'm a failure as a person. And really how to let go of what I think people are thinking of me. That was a huge thing too, when you're I was and still to a degree struggle with that, but it really forced me to be okay with, all right, I'm gonna have to like let go of what I think people are thinking of me in this moment. I'm gonna have to let go of this idea of I'm a failure because I'm not, because the only way forward is I'm just gonna have to embrace getting better. And like that's it. I'm just gonna have to embrace getting better and lean into that. And so that was very, very poignant for me.
Yeah, that's I guess that brings it closer to the heart from a motivation standpoint, almost spiritual.
Yeah.
Yeah. So has the spiritual side of Kyle always been there, or did that come about through an experience, a competitive experience, maybe?
Not a competitive experience. Came through a my first time smoking weed experience.
Okay, let's go there. That's fascinating.
Yeah, let's dive into that one. No, I mean, and I'll make this brief, but like I grew up in the church, and so like there was always that spiritual side of me, and I would have called myself a Christian. But it wasn't until I had a pretty wild experience from smoking weed that it became very real to me.
Hmm.
And then over the years since then, it's been a process of, what the Bible calls sanctification. We are just being sanctified, right, through trials and tribulations. And let me be clear, I'm nowhere near like where God would want me to be more Christ-like nowhere near it. But it is I'm definitely closer. But when I was in college, I did my buddy and I decided to smoke weed for the first time, or I was smoking weed for the first time. He was more experienced, so he was like, "Hey, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna get some weed." It sounded great on paper. He's like, "We're gonna get some weed. We're gonna smoke, nothing crazy, and then we're gonna smash some cookout afterwards. You know, like the fast food place cookout, and we're gonna watch a movie, and it's gonna be great." I'm like, "All right, dude. Yeah, let's do it. I'll try it." And so I was the one that got the weed, which is crazy because I had a connect from Red Lobster. Shout out Red Lobster. So I get it, and we decided to smoke, and he thought it'd be a great idea to smoke out of like a bong, like a take a waterfall bong hit, which I knew nothing about, and I did. I took a hit, took a big hit. I was like, I'm going for it, and I don't know if it was laced with something. I don't know if God just gave this to me. I don't know if it was just, it can just happen if you smoke too much the first time. I don't know. But I went into, there's no other way to describe it other than just like another realm. And I literally, I don't say this facetiously. I don't say this dramatically. Like I say it matter of factly. I thought 100% certain that I had died and I was in hell. Like
Wow.
like with 0% like, oh maybe this, no, like 100% certainty, like I'm here forever in hell, and I was stuck there. And I just had these thoughts going through my head of like everything I'll ever known is gone. I'll never do CrossFit again. Like everything was just gone. It was just flashing through my mind, like I will never see this again. And I was stuck, and I was having these visions of like, oh my gosh, my body's about to be ripped apart. And like it was very crazy, but it wasn't like fire and demons and all those things. It was just I was just stuck, and I was stuck in his living room. But his living room took on like a weird vibe. It was strange. And then next thing I know, I was out of it, and I was able to move, and I started crying hysterically, like screaming because I was like so happy that I wasn't there, but I was crying and I was hysterical, all these things. And my friend was like, he's high, and so he's freaking out too. He's like, "What is going on?" And I was having thought like, I don't mean to be like scare your audience or anything, but I was having these thoughts of like killing him. Like these evil, intrusive thoughts were like, and I was fighting it with everything I had inside me. And he was trying to get me to take a cold shower. I didn't want to take a cold shower because I thought he was trying to kill me. My mind was just gone. It was
Wow.
very strange. But I came out of it, like I said, and then I went back into it again. And then I came out of it a second time. And when I came out of it a second time, I ended up just passing out. And he said when I finally passed out, he was like, "Thank God, just go to sleep." Like, just go to sleep, dude. And so I passed out. I wake up the next morning, and for like a week, I was like just out of it. And this is where it gets really interesting is when I was telling a friend about it, my experience, because I kind of got over it, and I was like, all right, I'm fine. I was telling a friend about it, and I started experiencing the same sensations. Like I thought I was going back into it, and I wasn't high. And that's what freaked me out because I thought it was over, and then I was like, oh no, it's not over. Like, what if I go back into it again? And it led to about 8 to 10 months of dealing with like legit PTSD. Like I was having nightmares every night. I couldn't focus. I felt detached from my body emotionally. And that led into me just learning how to like I got back into church, obviously. 'Cause I remember the first time I saw a church, I started crying. Like I started sobbing because I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I'm here. And so I got back into church, and I was going to campus outreach with a friend. I lived under a friend's bed because he was a believer. And I was like, I'm not going to be anywhere away from you. So I was like, stayed at the house where he was staying, and I slept under his bed because I didn't have anywhere else to sleep. I just put a mattress under there. And that's where I slept because the room was so small. I was like, I don't care. I'm sleeping right here. And he was so cool with it. And I just went through this process of like learning how to heal from that. And I used fitness as a coping mechanism. It made me feel better. Music as a coping mechanism, and just diving into the word, and like God really changed me through that. Yeah, and like I said, I wasn't perfect afterwards. Like I had a kid out of wedlock, so like I joke about it, but like do the math. I was still not perfect by any means, but definitely a lot closer than I was before.
Yeah, do you think that that experience was a catalyst for things happening in the background that you were either consciously or unconsciously aware of, and that was a pinnacle moment that the smoking experience just lit on fire, or
Yeah.
was everything fine and this was just out of the blue?
No, I think it came at a perfect time.
Hmm.
Yeah, I do, and I'm glad that it happened. As scary as it was, as awful as it was, but I'm glad that it happened because now I don't smoke weed. Like I don't, I don't
Not
even want
going
to touch
down
it.
that road again.
Yeah, I don't even want to touch it. So that's really helpful. But it really, I mean, I just don't know that I would have ever taken my spiritual walk as serious as I do now.
Hmm.
Like, and it was funny because, months before that, I actually prayed because I went to an event and I just felt numb. I just didn't feel any movement toward the spirit at all. And I was like, you know what, God, I'm going to pray that you would just break me.
Mm.
I was like, I'm going to pray that you would. And he did. He knew exactly what I needed to break me because physically, like if I had gotten injured, and even now, like if I were to get injured, it's like I know so much about injuries and how to recover, and like I just don't think that it would really affect me as much as something like that. Emotional things really, really, really hurt me, and that was a very emotional experience that just, I mean, just broke me mentally. I mean, I cried more than I've ever cried in my life during that time. My friend slapped me one time because I just I kept crying and I kept saying, dude, I feel like I'm still there. He smacked me and he was like, dude, you're not there. Like, you need to chill. And it was actually very helpful, but it got to that point. So it was a very interesting experience to say the least.
Yeah, well, there we are to the discussion about pain again. You could not
Mm,
transform spiritually unless you had gone there,
yeah.
right? And it's no different in the physical transformation for a lot of people. They have to be 50, 100 pounds overweight before it finally the pain is so great. Something's got to give.
Yeah.
Kyle, I guess that drives me to the next question around the non-negotiables then that you have incorporated into your life as discipline in
Mm.
the mental, spiritual, physical phase of your life. Is it the non-negotiables that make a difference for you right now?
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I mean, I don't know if I wish I could turn the blur screen off. I don't know how to do that. But behind me, there's a bookshelf, and I mean, it's got a ton of books on there, and it came from one of my non-negotiables, which is like I'm gonna read 5 to 10 pages a day. I just started doing that, and I never would have thought that I would have a library full of books, but like I have got a library full of books that I've read, and I look at it and I'm like, holy smoke, I read all this. And so my point is my non-negotiables of I'm going to work out, I'm going to get in the word, I'm going to read a book, like all those things that I just do, the daily habits have led to reaching goals and milestones over the years for sure. Right. And that's what I try to tell people. You just have to figure out what are the habits you're going to do, and then you got to stick to them. Right. And reduce the friction to accomplishing them. Like set out your book on your nightstand, like whatever it is you got to do to remind yourself. Like, what's the book? Atomic Habits.
Hmm.
James Clear. He talks about that, and it's essentially it's just that you just design your life to reduce the friction to accomplish these habits that lead to bigger goals. Like that's it. And if you do that, you will move forward. And I'm not going to guarantee everyone's going to reach these crazy lofty goals, but you will get much closer to them if you do your daily dues or whatever the habits you decide to establish for yourself. And that's been huge for me over the years. Just simple things.
Kyle, I met James Clear at a John Maxwell conference, couple of meetings ago, and he said something that has stuck with me, and I'd love your perspective on it, that we overcomplicate non-negotiables.
Mm,
He said it's simply a choice.
yeah.
You either make it or you don't. So you don't need all these systems and processes. It's not about the system or the process of the non-negotiable. It's the choice you make. Just
Mm,
make the choice.
yeah.
And I'm curious from from your perspective, is it that simple? And why does that not translate for most people? And two examples of that would be New Year's resolutions and what you give up for Lent.
Yeah.
Um, really, really big struggles for people, and they try all the systems and processes to make it work, and they don't, they give up their power of choice, I guess, in the process, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. I think so. So for me, when I think of like, because I do like systems and processes, and when I say that for me specifically, what I mean is like, okay, every morning when I get up, I'm gonna go drink my cup of water. Like that's my system and my process for that, right? Now, and you can do that for other things. Now, I think what happens, I think, is if someone misses it or forgets it or whatever, like, day one or day 10 or whatever it is, they're like, oh, well, I guess I just can't do it. Or because I didn't drink it in the morning, I guess the day's ruined. I didn't drink my water. And it's like, well, why can't you drink it now? You're thinking of it. Like, just drink the water now. Like, go take your Yeti, go get a thing of water and drink 32 ounces. Like, there you go. You did it. And so I think it goes back to James Clear's point where it's like, you just have to make the choice. But also, he said this in his book too, which I loved. It's like, just be, if you can only do less for the day, be okay with doing less. So, like, for instance, I want to read 10 pages a day. Let's say my day gets crazy busy and I just legitimately don't have time to sit down and devote 20 minutes. Can I read one page? It's like, yeah, I could probably read one page. I can do it while I'm taking a crap. Like, I can do, you know what I mean? Like, I can make it happen. And so, and that's what he talks about. It's like just casting a vote toward that person, right?
Mm.
Like if I read that page, I've kept the habit alive. I've stayed devoted to being that person, even though it was only one page. Tomorrow, let's try to get back on 10. If we can't, let's do five. And so, yeah, I love that where it's have the systems, have the processes, the idea of when you're going to do things, how you're going to do things. But if it doesn't happen, it's okay. Just still choose to do it at some point during the day, even if it's a quarter of what you were going to do. And I think that's really helpful for people realizing that you can do less and still move forward.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. I agree. We all need systems and processes. That to me is the way. But I
Mm,
think that that space between stimulus and response, I've talked about this on the
mm.
show a lot. That's what you're actually in control of. Is if we can shorten the gap between the thought that goes into our mind that's going to distract us from the system or process, if we
Yeah.
can capture ourselves in that moment and redirect, we own that. That is the controllable that's going to get us to the next step. So it's the
Mm.
choice that gets you to the system or the process. It's not the system or the process. And I think
Yes.
too often we define ourselves by the system or the process. I didn't drink the water. Oh well, I I'm done. That's it.
Yeah.
I'm just not
Yeah.
good enough. Well, no, let's look at the step right before that. Why did you make that decision? What was the gap like for you between stimulus and response, and what thought overrode your hand going to grab the cup of water?
Mm.
I think that that kind of discernment is more important than the system or the process isn't going to fail you. Your choice will. Maybe that's
Yeah.
what I'm trying to get to.
Yeah. And, I'm interested in your thoughts on this because I thought of this while you were saying that. I think, because this has been true in my own life, I think if people are so willing to just throw it all away when they make that one mistake or they miss that one whatever and it derails them and they're just so willing to be like, ah, whatever, and go back to their old ways. I would argue that you probably don't want it bad enough because if you
Mhm.
wanted it bad enough, like you wouldn't let that derail you. It would fire something inside of you of like, no, I'm not letting that happen. I'm gonna go do whatever. And I think some people just don't want whatever their goal is bad enough. Like I tried social media for like a lot of times, posted and then stopped, posted and then stopped because it would get hard. It would get annoying. It'd get frustrating. I would miss a day and I'd be like, ah, whatever. I'm not going to do it. And it wasn't until I wanted it bad enough and I was in enough pain and I was tired of the life I was living that I was like, I'm not letting this happen. And even if I miss a day now, it's like back on it the next day. Like I'm in it. I'm doing it. Even if I can't get 3 posts a day, it's 1 post a day. I'm doing the 1 post. I'm interested in your thoughts on that, if I'm wrong or if I'm oversimplifying that. But yeah, I'm curious your thoughts on that.
Yeah, why are people so quick to give up? For me, it's an attachment. It's an attachment issue. You've either attached your identity to something, or maybe it's expectation, not identity. You've set an expectation that you have now missed
Mm,
that then defines you. So since you're, yeah, let me rethink that. So let me take it from a family perspective. I love, honor, and respect my family so much that there's a protective energy within me that come hell
mm,
or high water, I'm going to provide for, love on, and be with my family
mm,
more than anything else. I'm
mm.
attached to that, and that is my reality. I think for people who are quick to give up something, they're attached not to that thing they want, they're attached to the something else. And I think it's an understanding where your attachment is
Mm.
tells you what you're willing to invest in, protect on, fight for.
Yeah.
I think that's the telltale sign is
Yeah.
where is your loyalty? And if you're so quick to give it up, well, man, I think that's just a finger pointing, or you need to go look in the mirror and go, why am I not attached to myself?
Mm.
Why, what am I attached to? And then when you realize it's a older version of yourself, it's that child, it's that victim that you're attached to. No wonder you're not fighting for the new version of yourself. You haven't created it yet. You're attached to the old version and
Yeah.
you're protecting that image of yourself and you're unconsciously unaware of it. I hope that
Yeah.
made sense.
No, that's yeah, I love the way you worded that because that's I think that's exactly what that is. You're attached to the old way that you are and stepping into that new version of yourself. Yeah, finding a way to anchor yourself to the potential new version of yourself seems to be the key. The catalyst to get there, that seems to be the tricky part and almost individualized from person to person. You hear so much like people go through, like for me, I was just in a lot of pain. I was in a lot of pain. I didn't like it anymore. I lost my relationship, the potential to hang out with my kid every day. I didn't have any money, and it was like I don't like this. Right? For some people, it's pain. For some people,
Mhm.
maybe it's the idea of success. I don't know, but it seems to be individualized from person to person to attach
Agree.
onto that new thing. Yeah, that's fascinating. I like thinking about that.
Yeah, and I mean, look at your transformation and what you're doing to help parents.
Hmm.
Clearly, I believe in the early part of anyone's transformation, be it a mom, a dad, a couple who is bringing you into their life to help them go from one level to the next level. Some people are going to borrow from you. You exude light, love, leadership, courage, strength, discipline, all those things that people desire, but they don't have.
Hmm.
I think it's okay to borrow for a little while from someone else out of trust because you're holding the space for them. They're gonna reap some interest from borrowing from you that they
Hmm.
then are able to invest back in themselves to move them to the next level. And I think for some men who have a high ego, when they are in that victim position or they're suffering and in pain, they might be unwilling to borrow, which is the catalyst, I think, for a lot of people's transformation, is
Yeah.
allowing themselves in this season of change that I know I don't have it, but here's Kyle who's willing to give it to me. I'm going to accept it. I'm going to believe in that because that's all I got right now. and then I'm going to reap the investment of that with some interest that I reinvest in myself. And Kyle allows me to do that. I think
Yeah,
that's the
yeah.
magic of a coach, right? They help you
100%.
believe.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, we all need we all need people who can speak into our lives and encourage us, hold us accountable. I use this analogy when I'm speaking to a potential client. It's like, do you remember when you were a kid and you didn't want to brush your teeth and your parents are like forcing you to brush your teeth and you hated it? You're like, Mom, no, I don't want to brush my teeth. Like, you use the whole thing, right? And I stole this from Alex Ramosi. So just shout out to him in case he hears this. I don't want to claim this as my own, but I took it because I was like, man, it's so great. And so what happens is, when you're really young, you don't like to brush your teeth, right? But as you get older, it's like, well, do you brush your teeth? They're like, yeah. And it's like, okay, well, that external accountability ended up being your internal responsibility. But at the
Mm,
time, that's what you needed. Like you needed that accountability and that push, and you had to, borrow that, or however you want to word it. But then now you do it, right? And so sometimes you need that. When I would talk to people, it's like right now you're just in a space where you need just someone reminding you that you can
mm.
do this, and you need a consistent plan and structure, and eventually this will be just your lifestyle. It's just going to be a time period where you need extra help, and that's okay. I think what holds people back from asking for help is, like you said, that ego, right? It keeps them from being resourceful. Like our greatest superpower is being resourceful, but we don't want to admit we need help. It's like, man, if you can just ask for help, you will reach your goals. You really will. And you just lean into it.
No doubt. Unconscious unawareness. I think John
Mm,
Maxwell talks about that. The that's how you exist if you're not careful. You're just unconsciously unaware, blown by the winds.
yeah.
It's when you become conscious of that which you were unaware of,
Mm,
that things start to change. And I appreciate that a lot in your story, just from the aspect of authenticity.
mm,
I feel like you know what you don't know, and you're unafraid to grow.
mm,
You're right there at the pinnacle of your personal performance and becoming an optimized human, and you're just keeping it real with your audience. And I think there's something really attractive about that, Kyle. And I want to
mm.
give you kudos. That's exactly how it translates when I listen to you on your podcast or see you in your social media stories, just sharing a candid personal story or an occasional unfiltered rant. It is it is it is a light, man,
Mm.
and I just want to thank you for that. And I guess it begs the question, how important is authenticity and vulnerability in your leadership style? And has being so open and honest help you connect with more people? I mean, you've got over what, almost 73,000 followers, and you're inspiring thousands of people's journeys.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, it's really important to me because what I told myself when I started this journey was like, I don't want to portray the image that I'm perfect. Like I don't want people to follow the glowed up version of me. Like I want people to follow the messy version of me, right? And I try to balance it, like I try not to share like super personal stuff, but I still share pretty personal stuff. Like especially my first podcast, I just I just gave my whole story and I was like, here, I just want you guys to hear this. But it was very important to me to be authentic, and finding ways to do that, creative ways to do that has been challenging. But yeah, I don't. There's just so many social media pages where you don't know like, well, who is this person, like what's really going on in their life, and it's not until they go on a podcast and they're actually willing to be open and vulnerable that they share it, and you're like, oh, this is a real person. And whenever they do that, you're like, I like them more because they're more like me. My life is a mess, their life's a mess. Okay, cool. And so I try to do that, and then balance it between, marketing material because I am running a business and I want to be able to bring in clients. And so it's very tricky, but it's important to me to be authentic and real. And so many people that I talk with on the phone, potential clients or clients that I do sign, they're like, "Yeah, I chose you because you just seem like a real dude." I'm I'm like, all right, well, good. That was the goal. Because I am a real dude. It's not, I'm not just some like mystical figure on social media. Like I am just a real dude doing life that gets stressed and was struggling with internet for a week here and was like I go through normal things just like you know? Because I always admired that in other people that I looked up to when they shared that stuff. I was like, oh man, that's so cool. Like it feels more attainable now. Like it feels like where they're at is more attainable because they're being real. It's like that gives me hope. And so like I just want to be that for other people as well.
Yeah, that is so good. The tagline for the podcast is the look of leadership that is unmistakable.
Hmm.
And I think that's what comes across in you is that authenticity, Kyle. Look, I know we're running low on time. I want to be respectful of the time you offered me, man. So, last question. There are many listeners out there facing their own challenges. They might be feeling stuck, they might be defeated, or in need of their own personal comeback. Based on everything you've been through, Kyle, what advice or encouragement would you give to someone who needs to find their inner grit, um, needs to overcome adversity and strain forward toward a better life?
Man, that's a fantastic question. I don't want to oversimplify it, right? But I mean, it genuinely is like figure out what your next action step is. Like, what's the next action step I need to do? Whatever it is, wherever you're at, whatever you're going through. Like, what's the next thing I need to do? Go make that happen. And then do the next thing. And then do the next thing. And when a setback comes or you feel like quitting, take a moment, pause, breathe. If you got to take a day, but then get back to work. And it really is like, I don't like saying my tagline as cliche as it is, but it really is about just keep moving forward. Like quarter of a step, a millimeter, whatever it is, just take the step and keep moving forward. Like that will, man, you will see things drastically change in your life if you can do that.
Wow. People are going to have to rewind that and listen to it multiple times. That was gold. Kyle, thank you so much for the light of leadership you shined on me and the listeners today. I believe your mission in helping others achieve an optimal version of themselves is a laudable, respectable mission in life. You're a man of character. You're a man of values and such a beacon of hope, courage, and strength for many out there. I'm so glad you're out there, man. Bless you for what you do. You've earned a new fan in me, and I have such mad respect for you saying yes to a conversation to go a little deeper with a hero that walks amongst us. Thank you, Kyle. I appreciate you deeply.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Thank you for having me on.
The Aesthetics of Leadership Podcast, the look of